My students, how are you? Yeah, I'm called Mr. Alexander Toireyo. I'm a teacher of physics and mathematics. So today I'm going to take you through projectile motion. We shall look at projectile motion. So now, in projectile motion, we are going to see so many things. One, we are going to look at the definitions of a projectile motion. Two, projectile. And then from there, we shall talk about examples of projectile motion. Then we talk about application. Then lastly, talk about the parameters of the motion. Now, we shall start with the definition of a projectile motion. A projectile motion is the motion which depends on acceleration due to gravity alone. Is the motion which depends on the acceleration due to gravity alone. So now, after seeing that a projectile motion, it is a motion which depends on acceleration due to gravity alone, then we shall talk about a projectile. So a projectile is a particle or a body when thrown in space. It is influenced by acceleration due to gravity. So this is a particle or a body when thrown in the space. It is acted upon by acceleration due to gravity alone. So that particle, it is what we call a projectile. So a particle can be a stone, e.g., it can be a stone, anything. It can be chalk, etc. So now, how are daily examples of the projectile motion? Daily examples of the projectile motion. So if we say daily examples of the projectile motion, we mean where do we find this projectile motion? First of all, what you should also know that if I throw a stone in space, it does not move in a straight line. If I shoot something, a bullet does not move in a straight line. So those motions, it is what we call the projectile motion. One, shooting a bullet from the rifle, that is an example. Then also I can throw a stone in a space, that is a projectile motion. Also some hunters shooting using an arrow, also here they use projectile motion. That is our daily examples of the projectile motion. Where do we apply this projectile motion? So we can look at the application of the projectile motion. Where do we apply this projectile motion? One, shooting something. Maybe two, throwing a stone to any object. Two, it can be also used in rescue planes. Can be used also in rescue planes. Four, also it can be used by hunters. The motion can be applied by hunters. 5, it can be used in setting the satellites, in the space. Also, it can be used in rocket explosion. Etc. Or here it is not so much, we can just remove that one. Types. After now seeing the application of projectile motion, now we can talk about the types of the projectile motion. Types of the projectile motion. So we have only two types of projectile motion: horizontal projectile motion, and then two, oblique, which is the same as vertical projectile motion. Then we shall look one by one. We start with horizontal. Motion. So this is the kind of projectile motion. This is the kind of the projectile motion where the projectile or the particle, where the particle is projected horizontally from a certain height with the given speed or given velocity. And then if we try to sketch it, this is at a certain height, this is the level ground, and then you project it at a certain distance given with a certain velocity, and then it moves in that way. But here we shall realize that theta is equal to 0 naught. So in other words, when we are projecting a particle here in horizontal projectile motion, the particle is projected at an angle 0 degrees, and it is being given a speed at the start, and it is from a certain height. Vertical. Vertical projectile motion. Vertical projectile motion is the kind of the projectile in which the body is projected at a certain angle with horizontal. Is the kind of the projectile motion projectile motion in which a body is projected, in which the body is projected with a certain angle of projection. And this is how we can sketch it. So this is V meter per second, and then this is time in seconds, and you project your body with a certain initial velocity V naught, and we give it an angle theta. So that is the vertical projection. Parameters. We shall talk about parameters of the projection of the projectile motion. Parameters of the motion. We shall start with number 1, origin. So now, as you hear the origin, so a point where a particle starts from, or a projectile starts from, it is what we call the origin. 2, departure, or 2, initial velocity, which we can call maybe V or U. This is the body, this is the velocity, the body or particle starts with. So that speed the particle starts with, it is what we call the initial velocity. But it is divided in two components. It has two components. We have Vx, which is equal to, maybe we can call it maybe V, which we can call it Vx, which is equal to V naught cos theta, and then Vy, which is equal to V naught sin theta. But now, if you try to see your V, suppose it is there, that is your V naught, and you want to get these two velocities, because now it is going to be, yes, it's going to be dissolved in that way.